Hi guys, and welcome to another video. My name is Mark Parham. I'm an entrepreneur and property investor. And in this video, I want to talk about 5 tricks that will guarantee that you'll be a millionaire. Now, I've had this video in my mind for a while now. Let me just put my shoes on and we'll go outside and we'll have a little walk around and we'll talk about it. But I've had this video in my mind for a while and I'm not sure how to articulate everything. But I've got kind of 5 principles that will guarantee you'll become a millionaire. And today I want to share those with you. So tip number 1 is plan to be a millionaire. Now, this might sound very, very simple, but people tend to plan their night out, their holiday, all that sort of stuff, but they don't put much thought into planning for their future. So I'll give you some ideas of how you're going to plan to be a millionaire, but the first thing you need to do is create a plan. And that needs to be realistic based on your circumstances. And if you want to have a chat with me about creating a plan, as you know, until I get to 1,000 subscribers, you can have a free one-to-one consultation call with me, and we can sit down, have a look at your circumstances, and come up with a plan that would pretty much guarantee you, as long as you stick to it, on that journey. All you need to do is have a look in the description, there'll be a link in there, click the link, fill out the short form and we can have a chat. But having a plan is central to achieving any goal. So once you've got a plan and the plan's all in place, the second thing you need to do is make sure you start executing that plan and keeping your expenses small. And you know I'm a big protagonist of making sure that you keep your expenses and living below your means. I am a big believer in that. And in fact, this pandemic's been the only time I can think of where I've had a negative balance on a monthly basis. And that's because I took such a big hit on my taxi company. I've always kept my monthly expenses well below my monthly income. And I'll give you a great example of that. This car you see behind me, I bought in 2017. It was brand new when I purchased it. And it cost me £640 a month. I put it on finance, of course, it's a depreciating asset. Depreciating assets go on finance. That's tip number 3. Everything that's depreciating, all on finance. We're not going to be paying for that, we're only going to be buying appreciating assets. But back to the car, and obviously the car, I didn't skimp on anything, okay? It's very dirty right now, but I didn't skimp on anything. I got exactly the seats that I wanted, although those need a clean. I got exactly the right double screen, I got everything upgraded, I got top spec of absolutely everything. I didn't deny myself one thing, but I don't pay for this car. I bought a property in Didcot, it rents out for £3,200 a month. There's about £1,400 a month of profit in that, and that car is paid for by that house. And I didn't buy the car until I bought the house. Same goes for my wife's car over here. This car costs us nearly £1,000 a month, right? It's a 100 grand car, of course it does. But again, we didn't buy this until we purchased another house, and that house was paying for this one. So everything that we own that depreciates is on finance, and we own properties and assets that pay for them. Does that make sense? So tip number 3 is to only purchase appreciating assets and to always lease or finance depreciating assets. And I work this personally between tip 2 and tip 3, which is I deny myself that upgrade unless my passive income can pay for it. So a good example of that is in February of 2020, I had a Ferrari 488 on order, and in March 2020, I cancelled that order because I knew that my income was going to drop, and I knew even though I could still afford the payments, which was only about £1,400 a month, I could still afford that, it wasn't going to be coming out of passive income anymore. And for me, that was just unacceptable. So know the difference between an appreciating asset and a depreciating asset. Appreciating assets, things like stocks, shares, index funds, property, gold. These are all the things that you want to own. Now, the things that you want to lease or finance, the main one, obviously being cars, they can dig a big hole in the finances. Those you put on finance if you can, and you use the money that you get from your asset to pay for the finance. If you can't afford it from the money coming from your asset and you want to be a millionaire, you're better off not having the car yet. Tip number 4 is to give yourself time to allow your wealth to compound. Now, everybody watching this video is already going to know about compounding of wealth, because otherwise you wouldn't have found my channel. But the compounding of wealth really starts to take effect after 3, 4, 5 years, especially with property, when the value of the property is going up and it's exponential versus the value that you've put down in a deposit, because you're leveraging bank money. This is going to really start to take effect on your money after 3, 4 or 5 years, and you need to give yourself time for that compounding to take effect. Do not take that money out and start using that for lifestyle. Take that money out and reinvest in another property. Start building that foundation of wealth. And obviously everybody's an individual when it comes to how much money they want or how much money they need. I don't know what's right for you, and it comes back to having the plan at the beginning, right? If you've got a plan and you've got an aim and you've got a goal and you know how to get there, then you'll know when it's right to start spending and when you need to compound more. But have that plan in place, understand what you're going to be doing, and then make sure that the compounding of your money and wealth is in line with the plan that you set out in the first instance. And this is remembering that plans can change. I've got 3 children, and guess what? 3 children at private school, that's over £5,000 a month. You need to understand that plans can change. And over the period of my wealth creation, so far, my plans changed many times. I remember saying £10,000 a month, that's all I need to live. Now, if you can think that 3 children at private schools, £5,000 a month, 10 is not enough. Because after you've paid your tax, you've pretty much only got the money to send your children to school. How are you going to eat? How are you going to live? What are you going to take them to school in? The plan can change, and that's okay, but it's important that you adapt your spending and your compounding to the new plan each time. So let's recap on the 5 tips really quickly, okay? So tip number 1 is to create a plan that we know will get us to the end destination, bearing in mind whatever the end destination might be for you. Tip 2 is to live below your means and use that money to be able to start purchasing assets that will pay you. Tip number 3 is to buy appreciating assets only and to finance depreciating assets, again bearing in mind tip number 2, which is to live below your means so that you're always increasing your net wealth. Tip number 4 is essentially patience. It's allowing that money to compound and to use that money to compound your wealth over time. Understanding, again, reverting back to your original plan, your plan was probably a 3, 5, 10-year plan to get incredibly wealthy. For me, it's taken me 10 years to become a multi-millionaire. And most of that's happened in the last 3 years. But when you're writing your plan, this will quickly reveal over what period of time you will become incredibly wealthy. But it's possible for anybody in any circumstances. And tip number 5, and the final one, the final piece of a jigsaw, is to absolutely obliterate the like button. Because if you do that, YouTube will smile happily on you. I'm only joking, but please do. Tip number 5 is to review periodically and be honest with yourself. So if you've come off plan or you're off track, you need to adapt your plan to your new situation, and you need to be reviewing regularly. If you can imagine going off on a destination on a straight line, but you start to veer off to the left, now the longer you keep going in that direction, the further away from your end destination you end up. Now the same applies to when you're creating wealth and you're on a plan and you start to veer off, you get further and further away from that end destination the longer you don't notice you're off track. So my biggest tip at the end of this is to make sure that you're reviewing periodically. Without a plan, it's useless, right? Because you don't know what you're reviewing against. But once you've got a plan that you know will work, then you need to be reviewing periodically to know exactly where you are against the plan that you set out for yourself. And the last thing I want to do in this video is give reassurance that it does work. By doing these steps, you do become wealthy, as long as you follow it rigidly. If I go back a decade, I was probably only worth about £26,000. And then if I go back 5 years, I was probably worth about £100,000. But at this point, my first investment, which was a property, had added about £75,000 to my net worth. If I knew then what I know now, I would probably have got more wealthy quicker. Then between that 5 years and now, I've become a multi-millionaire because my knowledge increased, but my wealth and capital that I could deploy increased significantly. So it does work. You just have to have a plan. You have to execute against it. There is no getting away from living below your means for the majority of us. For some very talented people who have an exponential income curve that's absolutely insane, they can live above their means and their income will still overtake their lifestyle. But that's not normal. That's not the normal way of becoming wealthy. Normally, you live below your means, you invest the difference, and those investments is what makes you wealthy over time. And I think it's incredibly difficult to become a millionaire in 1 year, but it's incredibly easy to become a millionaire over 10 years if you have a good plan and you're willing to work that plan. So what are your thoughts? I'd be really interested in the comments. If you want to have a conversation with me, as I said, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. I'm more than happy to help people as much as I possibly can. I'm not a financial advisor, but what I am is an expert at looking at situations and going, okay, how can we develop that situation to be better for you? So I would be more than happy to sit down and help you appraise your current situation and help you put a plan together that would mean that over time you will become incredibly wealthy. I hope you've enjoyed this video, I really do. It's been in my mind for a while and I haven't known how to articulate it. So I hope that I've articulated it well for you. Essentially, have a plan, live below your means, know the difference between depreciating and appreciating assets, and only buy appreciating assets. Oh God, it's hard to hold up 4 fingers, isn't it? Be patient, allow compounding to take effect, and review regularly and make sure you're on track. I've been Mark Parham. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I will see you again on Wednesday.